Yeah, I'm Gary Lobermier. I work as the lead adversarial engineer at Northwestern Mutual, part of the red team. 8 of us on that team, just doing all the cool stuff.
Nice. So let's talk about using GPUs for your AI pen testing and red teaming.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get ahead of it, right? Because like at some point, SLT is going to be like, hey, we heard that AI can just do your job for you. What do we need you for, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what we're doing. We have these cracking rigs, right, that are just doing nothing all the time. And it's not that we can't still use them for cracking, but let's see what we can do with local AI models.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of there's toolkits out there, right? There's like Hexstrike is the one that comes up a lot. Strix, Shannon, Pent AGI.
Yeah.
These are all just great frameworks that are pen testing frameworks for you leverage some AI agent somewhere, right?
Do you have a favorite so far from what you've played with?
Yeah, easily. Of everything I played with, I keep going back to Strix AI.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's point and shoot. It just works.
Ah.
So Pent AGI looks really cool on paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of nerd knobs, and I keep twisting them, and it's just like...
But you're spending all the time twisting them and
I'm so sick of twisting them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know, it's cool. It looks cool. It's worth playing around with, but Strix is super easy. Give it a good model and just fire it.
That's my next question. What models are you running?
So that's why we are building these rigs, because of course we're going to try, we've got a Bedrock account. We're going to go try some models out in AWS.
Yeah.
That's cool. Like Sonnet and Opus, they're expensive, right? And especially the way we ended up using them. I was using,
I mean, we're
Sonnet,
using API because there's API expensive,
Yes.
and then there's it's still kind of expensive even if you did a OAuth, Claude Code, or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. So we were using the API, and instead of Sonnet or Claude, which are very expensive, I looked at 3 smaller models: DeepSeek, Devstral, and Qwen 3 VL. It's like a Vision one.
Okay.
And Strix actually recommended some of those. So I'm like, well, let's start with Qwen 3 because it's I want to say 50 cents per...
It's a Vision model though?
Yeah, so you can feed it images, or if it's doing testing, right, and it brings up a browser, you can see the browser as opposed to just text, right? So highly recommended from Strix, from their documentation. All right, let's try that. It's only 50 cents per million tokens.
Okay.
And, what's Sonnet, $5 per million tokens?
Right.
Opus is $11 per million tokens.
Mm-hmm.
On 50 cents per million tokens, we were just testing it for the morning, $600.
No.
In the morning, right? And that's not even, these are tests. What we want to do is large scale external
that's not
attacks.
scalable.
Not scalable. We could spend...
Well, I don't know what your budget is, but
we got a good budget, right?
Yeah.
Fortune 100, we got a good budget,
Right.
but we're also not dumb. This is going to go wild, right? So for that expense, all right, let's dial it back. We've got this rig that we've paid for already. We could run local models on it. Let's see what it does, right?
Okay.
Take some tinkering, right? So you got to be in that mindset, but we are running models on those now.
You served them with Olama or?
Started with Olama.
Okay.
And I won't bash Olama because I use it a lot personally.
Mm-hmm.
Olama is convenience overall.
Mm.
It is super simple, right? And it just works. It comes at the cost of performance. So now that we're trying to scale it to a couple of different apps or concurrent users across all 8 of us, and we're firing up Claude Code pointing to the local models now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Olama doesn't scale that way.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, so you just ran into, is it throughput? Is it what?
Throughput, you really, back to the nerd knobs, you really don't get as many of those.
Oh, okay.
So I was reading about performance gains on hey, we should use VLLM. That's a much more performant one. And I don't have the exact objective data from our metrics, but I've read as much as 10 to 30 times faster. Okay, that's not ignorable, right?
Right.
So we set that up instead. There's a very far gap between the simplicity of Olama and the complexity of VLLM. It's not a fun gap. You're either all in and we put it all in Docker containers and there's, I'm essentially having the model tell me what config files to use for the model so that I can tune it the best that I can, right? So now we're running this local model on a handful of these GPUs instead of paying hundreds to thousands per day in API tokens, right? Works. It's not. I think we're right on the cusp of models being big enough, intelligent enough, but also small enough to run locally on these rigs. And I would still do it. What we've kind of pushed out now is wide scale testing across our external attack surface management, and see what it says. Right.
Yeah.
Not surprisingly, AI makes mistakes. Right. So we have hundreds of mistakes that it's making. And the easy answer to that was just to feed it back through a second time, right? And I literally call it the BS detector. Like, it's just a series of prompts that say, like, this time you're presenting to a red team. We don't want false positives.
Yes.
Go check this and tell me what's real.
Yeah.
That second run through, better.
Okay.
So,
okay. I'm guessing you tried to build that into first run so you don't have to
little
pay
bit,
double, but it's okay?
It's okay, and certainly we don't want to, like, eliminate true positives, right?
Yeah.
So
You'd rather trim back than...
trim back instead of trim before, that said, like, there's room to improve those prompts. A lot of this is, like, it's us attacking our own systems. We know we don't need to do, like, recon, right? So all of those prompts that are kind of built into some of these tools, we can scale that back, right? And make it more focused on even our tech stack if we wanted to get that finite.
So are you taking, like, default prompts and just kind of rolling with it, or are you heavily tuning this...
We're right in the middle of that
prompt
shift.
engineering, essentially, to your environment for things you know, because you're the internal testing team.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of that shift. It's been a lot of, like, fire the tools as is to see which ones do what we want them to do. And now that we're kind of settled in on, like, Strix is working for us, PentAGI I'm using as, like, the second layer, like, go just validate these.
Okay.
And so now that I've kind of seen how they work, now we're in that phase. Let's go tweak it and make it do what we want it.
Are you at the point where you're, like, giving different models, different, like, so this is a web app, you're better off with this model,
So,
down to the point of, like, this is SSRF, this model is even better at that?
It's a good thought, and certainly OLAMA gives you that granularity of, like, what you might not know about OLAMA is when you say, I want to run these 4 models, you probably can't run 4 models.
All at the same time.
Yeah, so what it's doing is it's loading one of those models,
And,
querying it, and now when you ask for the second one, it unloads that one, loads the other one in. That all takes a lot.
that
of
alone is
processing.
going to be your 20-30%.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, now I get it a little bit more.
So what the problem now is we run the models that we like, but they are static. They're fixed. It's that model. They consume the GPUs. Nothing can be unloaded or loaded into that GPU anymore. It's locked to those.
Nice.
So more performant, but you have to know what you want to run.
Now, have you seen it do better on NetPen, web application? Like, where is it doing well, and where is there room for improvement?
So that is actually a little bit model dependent. Like, I would say the majority of what we're pointing it to right now is web apps.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of applications that we want to test, right? That's part of the goal for this project is, say, self-service app pen testing, right? We want to pen test. Our team is only 8 people. Click go, and our agent will go do the pen test and let us know if it's worth looking at, right?
Right.
So it's mostly app pen test right now. That said, I know other people I've been kind of discording with that are, doing bug bounty with it or internal pen tests with it, and mixed results. It all depends on the models you're using, the money you've got to spend, and the rigs you're running it on.
Yep.
So
that's actually what we're talking internally about, which is, like, at what how much money do you want to throw at it, right? How accurate do you want to be? How much money you want to throw at it? And then for us, people pay us to do this type of work, right? So it's like we want to automate and build the platform to do it so that humans don't have to, because humans are expensive. But oh man, these things live 24/7. You can have 40 of them pointing, 40 different agents pointing at one application. Like, the application's going to shit the bed before before it'll even get the coverage of the testing. So it's kind of like, all right, well, how much do you want to pay for that? So, like, the cost of engineering comes in pretty quick. So it's really cool to hear that.
It really does.
You've kind of, like, you actually already had to do the cost engineering early, right, to kind of figure out what's going to scale and what works.
Yeah, because it does. When you're using just API tokens, it was very fast. We're like, nope, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Especially some of those bigger models. We did do a lot of testing in the API itself, but because of the cost, we kind of went local. But the thing was, the larger the model you're using inside of like Bedrock or something, and it is the best way to use largest models, right?
Yeah.
These are minimum 80 billion parameter models.
I was going to
Some
ask,
of
were
these
you touching 120 yet, or?
Yeah, I played around with a little
Okay.
bit of 120 locally, actually. But the thing is, once you get into that 80 billion plus parameters, they're a lot better about spinning up custom agents and reasoning why I should do that. And so what happens is the costs spiral very fast.
Yeah.
Now, the last time I ran it, it had literally spun up 25 different agents, all focused on a Cloudflare WAF bypass. Cool,
25.
but I'm paying for that now, right? And there's another 25 that are actually doing the app testing. Like, do I really need to be spinning up all these? I don't want a WAF bypass. I want to do the app test, right? I want a little bit more focus. And so it's cool, it's capable, it reasons that out.
Do you know why it's spinning up more agents?
The more parameters available to the model, the deeper it thinks about, like, I should try harder, or I should try specifically this, and
I have availability to do so.
And I have the availability,
Got it.
yeah. So what I do notice running locally, we've tried a couple of different models, it doesn't do that as much. We don't generally have 25 different agents all specifically running. It's a little bit more finite.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's what I would say, like, I wish we had more capacity, even with our password cracking rig.
Well, it's kind of like, I'm going to go down, like, as a tester, you know, the human flesh kind, it's like, there's all these rabbit holes. I'm going to go down to every single one
Every one of them.
if I'm AI. If like I'm a human and I only have like 40 hours to spend on this
So
thing.
you focus better, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that is the balance. When we were running the 122 billion parameter model locally, we had to quantize it a lot. We had to bring it down and compress it down to so that it would fit locally.
And what do you run this on? 8 GPUs?
So that's
10?
the thing. It goes back to Ollama, actually. Ollama just runs. It sees, we have 7 GPUs in there, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay.
It sees 7 GPUs. It throws all the data it can at all 7 of them, and any excess, it'll throw onto your system RAM.
Okay.
That's cool. You know, the swap between system RAM and GPU is slow, but it's consuming as much as it can.
Yeah.
When you go into like VLLM or something more like highly performant, they don't do that. You have to lock it into how many parallel GPUs you're going to use, and it has to fit.
Yep.
And if it doesn't fit, it just doesn't run. We can't run it on 7 because that's an odd number, and it can't evenly split the parallel tasks.
Yeah.
So the next, you'd think 6, but there's it's like config.json in the Hugging Face model that defines like, hey, there's this number of attention heads in the model, and there's this much like size availability. It has to be evenly distributed.
Yeah, that makes
so
sense.
we had to limit it down to just 4 of those GPUs, even though we have 7 available.
Okay. Even
no-
though 6 is not. 6 is still a
6
even
didn't
number.
divide. Yeah, it just didn't divide. So it's like, what a pain, right? I'm just losing that capacity that Ollama can use
Okay.
at the cost of performance. I get better performance, but I can only use, it has to fit. Yeah, right?
Interesting. Okay. No, see, these are the things that you figure out like once you actually start turning the wrenches and building this stuff.
Exactly. So now, like, if we're going to build another rig specifically for this, 2 GPUs, 4 GPUs, 8 GPUs, or 16 GPUs,
Yeah.
nothing in between.
Yeah.
Not useful.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And what type of GPUs are you using currently today?
It's a lot of the gaming rigs, right? So, like, we have
5090s,
4090s,
4090s.
7 of the 4090s. Some of the older rigs are like 2080 Ti's.
Okay. You still getting mileage out of the 2080 Ti's?
A little bit.
In this
Yeah,
type
it's
of
a
work?
little harder. They are smaller. They are a little bit slower. I think it's only like 12 gigs of VRAM per card in that.
Yeah.
So then the spare cards we have on the 4090s, we only need 2 of them to outcompete the entire rig of the old one. But, you know, we can run smaller stuff on there. So we can play around with something, see if we like it. And if we do, go try it in a bigger rig, right?
Yeah. Scale it up, essentially.
Scale it up.
Yeah. And that's really interesting because, you know, I think a lot of people listening are like, oh, yeah, I got that password cracking rig that we built from 10 years ago, which is not wasted, right? Like, it's a lot of GPU power. But, like,
it, yeah.
this day and age, it's like you can use it to actually do the work that got you those hashes in the first place.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Like, is it discovering vulnerabilities that impress you? Because if no one knows, Gary has some pretty impressive findings. He's a very skilled tester. So, like, this is why I'm really interested in this question. Like, you know, what is your impression of what it's doing and what it's finding?
I think right now, variability being different models that we run, right now it is still classic AI, meaning sometimes you're like, this is crazy, how cool is that? That's amazing. And then you flip the coin, you're like, this is hot trash.
Yeah.
This is terrible, none of this is working. What am I wasting my time on, right?
Yeah.
So it's both. We do, and that's why we kind of cycle through and do like the BS detector, like, okay, I don't want to look at 200 new findings that are all false positives because the AI thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, but
it can only get better from here.
it can only get better, and there are certainly, there's been a handful of findings where, we found something exposed externally that I don't think we were supposed to expose externally, right? So we were poking around with it, like, oh, it shouldn't do this, and it shouldn't do this, it's vulnerable to this. So we fed it through the AI, and the two, three things it came back with were all of those same observations, like, hey, seems like this app has no authentication, or this seems like this app shouldn't behave this way. And so there's certainly times where it's on.
Yeah.
And so if we can validate when it's on, then it's useful to us.
Yeah. That's really interesting because we call it like lead generation, like, and not the sales form of lead generation.
I get it.
But
yeah.
like from a tester perspective, it's leads. And what we've noticed as Sprocket is like, okay, yeah, we can let models just run and go and go and go, and same thing, like you said, sometimes it impresses you, sometimes it's like, yeah, classic AI,
Yep.
crap. But what's really interesting is when it's like, hey, because like I just scoured like this 150,000 lines of code in the app, here in this one little spot, I see a reference to this thing. It's like, what? Wait, what? An open source project inside this, like, really, like, what is this? Oh, 5 people use this? Go out to GitHub, take a look at it, analyze it, find a bunch of vulnerabilities, exploit it in there. No shit, like, we would have missed it, right? Humans would have missed it because we can't dig. And so it's like, but once we find that out, you could actually, I call it prompt jockeying, right? Like, you just kind of say, oh, that's interesting. Dig deeper here. Go here. Try these attacks here with what you discovered here. And like, so I kind of describe it as AI going at it alone. Yeah, there's some success. Humans going at it alone. Yeah, it's a lot of hours and expensive. But you put the two together, like working, and it's like that's the nirvana.
It really is right now. I'm glad you brought that up because we have been finding a lot more success with source code evaluation because of that, and to the point where one of our side projects is now writing skills and instructions and prompts for our internal app teams in the same vein of like self-service app pen testing. These are the things we always see. These are the mistakes our developers make. This is the code base we always use. This is a typical language that we're familiar with, and this is how we screw it up. So why can't we write that up in an instruction file and list that publicly for our app teams and say like, hey, before you come to us, run this and check for IDORs, and if you get it, here's how you fix it, because every other app team that went through this already did that, and so that source code analysis has been actually a very good win for us, because now we can do that. It's much faster, right?
Yeah.
Much easier, much faster.
Have you replaced any tools that you guys purchased, like, because of this? 'Cause you know where my head is going when you're describing that, right?
So that's the idea. We are not there yet, but we have a couple things on the list. We're like, well, why? A couple vendors even, right?
Right.
Why would we do this when we can do it ourselves?
And that's kind of scary, actually. As
It's an
being
interesting
as
shift,
being a
right?
vendor, it's like, all right, like you can display certain functions in InfoSec in general and security testing and validation that like it's now like, okay, like great, like it's actually not bad because it means we're improving, right? Because we don't have to use humans to do it, right? So like now where can we focus the human efforts to even get this better? But at the same time, we're finding a lot more vulnerabilities that we haven't found before, right? So like someone's got to fix that shit too, right?
Yeah.
So like we're probably looking, turning back to AI, fix these low-hanging, easy fruit, like simple fixes.
No, you're doing it right then, because you're right to be concerned, but I think the people that are concerned but also not leveraging it themselves are the people that need to be concerned.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if you're concerned, but you're like me and you're actually leveraging it now,
Yeah.
that's the curve you need to be ahead. Just,
Yeah.
you know, that's why I'm not as worried. You know, it's not going to replace everybody. It's going to replace people who are not trying.
Yeah, it's automatically going to trim out the bottom performers. And let's talk about like where do you use it outside of like offensive security testing? Like, do you use it in like day to day at work, personal? Are you running an OpenClaw instance?
Yeah. Okay. So 3 different ways we could go with that. So we use it at work outside of offensive security. It's actually just been really nice to have unlimited tokens.
Nice.
Right? We're running that local model. We have all the capacity we could need. I'm using it every day. And we have Claude code pointing to that password cracking. Right?
Okay, I was gonna say like because that's what I find right now is like I do everything with the most expensive, best models there are, and then I walk it back, and then I even walk it. You know, okay, online model's great. Then can I do it with an offline model? What's the best offline model? I'm always thinking about that. But then there's some operations where it's like, well, I do this so rarely, I don't give a shit if I'm paying a lot of money for this. I'd rather have it done right, you know, because I only do it once a month. And if it costs me $1, I don't care.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been maybe a good segue into like personally what I've got running downstairs at the NM booth is I paid for Claude Code just for a pet project, which was, hey, I've always wanted my own C2 agent, right? Yeah. God, that's so much dev work. So I never did it, right? I never had my own C2 or my own agent. I'm a big fan of the Mythic framework.
Yeah.
So I plugged Claude Code into it, and what's running down there right now is an orchestrator around Claude Code that says, I want an agent. It should be written in Golang, just run with it.
Are you building custom agents for every engagement, right?
Yeah, it's been running for like 4 months, 24/7. I haven't touched a single line of code, and I have a fully functioning agent, cross-compatible to Windows, Mac, Linux, and it's like 200 native commands in it. And I've done none of it, right? Yeah. So like, that's kind of my pet project at home, but it lends into your question, like, are there tools that you're replacing with this? Like I probably won't buy another C2 server.
Yeah.
Because I could, for the license of a C2 server, I could spend half of that on Claude Code for the year. Yeah. And have it right.
Well, that's why you bought it in the first place. It's like I don't have time to I don't have time. Yeah. I don't have time to create this. I need to focus on the actual testing versus the managing of my C2. Yeah. At least I'm speaking for myself, right? Like,
absolutely. That's what a good C2 did for us, right?
It's like I'll pay for this problem. Yeah. But now like the cost of actually paying, it's like I build, I maintain it, and it costs me less is like a win.
Yeah. Huge. Yeah, exactly. And then now because it's all custom, it actually works better sometimes, right? Like I forgot I was running antivirus on some of the test lab machines that it has on there because it was just, there's no signature for that custom beacon, right? And there will be, but okay, I'll just ask Claude Code to write another one.
Yeah, right.
We'll get a new signature. And so it is much easier to iterate on that and cost less, to be honest.
Nice. Like, so how long do you think that took you then to actually build custom C2 agent, like set it all up, say, hey, I'm going to do this, purchase subscription to, I now have a usable thing?
Yeah, I would say January is when I was toying around with it, and I was like classic beginner AI user, sitting at a chat prompt, like write me this code, and then I would copy it and compile it, and it would have an error, and I'd copy it back and say, this is the error, and it would say, this is the new code, and I would copy it, and I'd paste it, and I'm like an expensive, useless clipboard API.
Yeah, right.
So I just got out of the way. Somewhere January, February, I said, why don't you just compile it and test it, and here's the SSH key to that dev server, and here's access to that testing Windows VM. Yeah. Just go.
And then it's just, and if you really haven't built like a complex thing like that and watch it work on its own, the first time you see it, it's kind of like, it's just weird, right?
Super weird. Like, I'm watching beacons come back into the framework and commands being executed on it, and I'm like, there's nobody here. It's just like doing it itself. Right. And it's wild to watch.
And I don't know about you, but like it didn't quite impress me to be like, yes, you open up a browser, you're clicking around, moving things. I was like, yeah, we've done that before in automation, like out of necessity of our type of testing, but there was something different when you like watch it, like log into things and like actually execute like code, build the code, execute the code, test the code, validate, reason, come back to you, like actually say, well, wait a minute, I found an error, let me fix that myself, right? Like, or what I built doesn't work the first time because of X, Y, and Z. Let me test again. Like the complex infrastructure, like something complex like a C2 that you create, that's to me, that's the impressive stuff.
It is, yeah. And I think it's only going to get better, right? So like even what it's doing now, I'm impressed with. And that's going to save me a lot of time. And now if I did it again, it would be that much better and I could iterate over it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started, it was like Sonnet, I think, was what I was using. And now it's Opus and it's better. And it's been 2 or 3 months, right?
Yeah.
4 months total, maybe.
So what's a crazy next idea, right? So there's web apps, there's NetPen, but like what other aspect of like red teaming would you, if you had, what's the next project?
That's the question, isn't it? Because like that's part of the reason why I'm just all in on this right now is I feel like for the first time in a while, I'm excited about what's the next step in red teaming, pen testing. Because we were talking earlier, like, I don't know, man, I don't want to be like, steal the identity and click export in the CRM. Like, that's boring. It's boring. I'm not into that. Yeah. And there's cool ways to do modern cloud pen testing, and that's not it, right? So like, what do we do with AI to make that happen? I think like the idea that we're running with this self-service pen testing is kind of cool for our internal teams, and then it lets us focus a little bit more. Yeah. I think we're going to do that on kind of a grander scale so that we can test all the apps that we never got to test before.
And that's what's awesome is like the scalability, like is and that's what we were always about is like we test everything at once, like real threat actors, and we test the technologies that are vulnerable, at scale against everything. And man, we built frameworks to do that, but now in these frameworks to deliver this, now we get to bolt in AI to actually do it and like make this stuff scalable. Yes. Now it's just like, let's just make it more intelligent, which we're headed in that direction.
That's what I was just going to ask. I mean, that's the direction for you guys. Is the scalability, or is there like more to it that you're like?
We've already got the scalability part down with the attack surface management, being able to deliver testing, across that whole fleet of technologies. Like that part we got down, and because my idea was like, as a tester, before we even had AI available to us, like, if I'm going to test anything at scale, I need like the vehicle to deliver that test to the technology, no matter where it's at, across all the technologies at the same time. So like I spend 2 seconds to find where all the net scalers are, and then I go ahead and take that exploit and I deliver it, and I'm spending that next 15 minutes, managing the exploitation of that, right? And I built that, and now it's in recurrence. So like, that's awesome, but now think of all the vulnerabilities that we're talking about, like that we haven't defined or haven't found, and web applications is the big one too, because so many people have custom built apps, right?
Yes.
Now it's like, it's not the delivery of it. Now it's like building the intelligence in to literally replace the human.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's a crazy time, and I've been talking to a lot of software developers as well too, and they kind of said the same thing that you said, Gary, which is like, you reach a certain point where you've seen it all, the cat and mouse game, like, you've built it all, you've done it, right? So it's like, what really gets you excited? And then AI comes along, it's like, well, I'm energized again because now I just shut it off all the
things
stuff
I have done, and I don't need to anymore.
Yeah.
I don't need to prove it to myself. So let the AI do it, and let's go focus somewhere else and do bigger, grander things while that's churning 24/7.
Yeah. And so like even an IR malware, analysis and things like that, it just shines there too, which is crazy.
I've heard, and I've not gotten into any of the reverse engineering that I've heard so many good things about, and I know certainly some of the people on our IR teams are like kind of really jumping in on this and starting to leverage it in ways that I don't even understand, right? Because it's a whole different world for me, so I wouldn't claim to, but I think it's interesting because there's a handful of people who are doing that, and there's still a lot of people who are skeptical and not leveraging that yet. And
I was just talking with someone else, sitting down here, and we're like, okay, there's those that actually have, if you have a resistance to this like AI movement in whatever job you're in, right, and you never use it, then it like you never see the benefits. And if you never see the benefits, then you're like, I don't know what the big buzz is, right? This poo-poo AI thing. But then once they actually use it and see the benefit, then they're like, I've drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the Kool-Aid phase.
For sure. Well, cool, man. Is there anything else we should chat about?
No, that's the cool stuff.
That is the cool stuff. Hey, Gary, thanks for hanging out at CypherCon and chatting with me.
Glad you had me. Glad you had me.
Yeah.
If you've made it this far, do me a favor and check out what we do at Sprocket Security. If you're ever in need of a penetration test and you want that hybrid scalable approach, the always testing, always on, not this fake click a button, do a pen test 2 weeks and then do that 5 times a year. No, I mean always on, always testing, latest bleeding edge threat that comes out there, latest exploit, phishing, all the way to, defense evading, covert operations, whatever type of pen test you need. We'll do it as frequently as possible, and we'll also provide a platform for us to interact together. I've devoted the last 5 years of my life to building penetration testing and innovating upon it and changing it so you can actually do security testing, proactive security testing, in a much better way. Give it a shot. Check us out, www.sprocketsecurity.com.